Mhm. Okay, let's see. Hello, good evening. Well, evening, afternoon. Okay, let's wait a few more moments. Yes, it should be working. Okay, just adjust my hearings. Hello, everyone. Thank you that you're with me this hour. Thank you that you're watching this later on. Thank you, Bridges of Light International. So, thank you, Gaetano Vivo, for creating this platform. And thank you, Life. Today, we are going to talk about traumas. What is a trauma? And also, we are going to consider if it's possible to transcend a trauma. In other words, if we can transform it and maybe even get rid of it or learn from it. And we're going to be considering um, why maybe sometimes it may be difficult or seems to be impossible to overcome a trauma. As always, if you have any comments, any questions, feel free to write them down. And I'll answer right here, right now, because I like uh, this hour together to be as interactive as possible. Otherwise, if you write this after I recorded the live, I'll answer to you in a comment. But what is trauma? A trauma could be considered as something that happened, and because of what has happened, uh, we reacted in a way that was very disturbing for our system, so to speak. But the trauma, there's different kind of traumas. There's some traumas, they may be physical traumas, like we may have an accident, like we may injure our hand, for example, and we may bang our hand against something, and that would be a a, a physical trauma. Okay, it's a sudden event that injured ourselves physically. Then we have a psychological, and also I like to consider them almost to be the same. Psychological, it's very difficult to distinguish um, a psychological and an emotional trauma, because I truly, well, I believe that our thoughts and our emotions, they're so um, interlinked, interwoven, so they generate each other, and it's such an intimate way that a psychological trauma, normally it is an emotional trauma, and vice versa. And this could be caused by a sudden death of somebody that is close to us, or maybe um, a very, very embarrassing situation that we have had, that we have lived when we were maybe very young, maybe 2 or 3 years old. We were, and somebody shamed us. Let's say we wet ourselves, okay, and maybe our parents, they really told us off, or maybe that happened when we were in public, and our caretaker um, shamed us. Basically, told us, for example, we are unallowed in a loud manner. What did you do? Aren't you ashamed of yourself? You shouldn't be doing that anymore. Okay. And we may have reacted in a with a shock. That could have been a shock to us because we were so embarrassed, okay, because we felt so judged that we, we for us it was a traumatic experience. Okay. I've been saying that um, an experience that could be traumatic for someone may not be traumatic for somebody else. You see, it's trauma cannot be defined. An experience cannot be defined traumatic for anybody and for everybody, because given the temperament, meaning the innate kind of personality disposition and emotivity that each one of us have, play a role in what we consider to be traumatic or not. And that is also has to be seen in the context of the family where we grew up, the environment, the social structure as well, of where we have been grown up. So it's very difficult. We can't generalize. What is traumatic for one person may not be traumatic for somebody else. But as human beings have the tendency of holding it within our system, within ourselves, traumas more than other animals, species on the planet. In fact, if you watch at dogs or cats, and I mention dogs or cats because they are the ones that normally we can see more often, but almost all animals in nature, when they undergo some kind of shocking experience, or what we could regard it as being a traumatic experience, if you pay attention, they shake it off soon afterwards. Because what happens is that when a trauma happens, when something happens and our energetic system goes into into shock, that generates a surplus of energy, right? But the animals, what does the animals soon after shakes it off, like goes. Have you ever seen animals doing that? Something happens and they may they may stop, or you can see that they are distressed, but later on they literally their whole system, it's instinctive. They have it. They let it go. Okay. Now, I wonder if we maybe would do it, because we are animals really. I wonder if we would do it like other animals do it, if we were not educated and trained and conditioned to uh, keep our emotions to us. We are almost all of us culturally educated to not express our emotions all the time, right? In fact, normally when a kid, one of the first learning that a kid has is not to cry, right? Because for as much as we may not like hearing a child screaming, the child has got his or a reason to scream, right? To cry. But one of the first learning that the child is exposed to is that it's not really okay to express emotions, and more than any other emotions, negative emotions. In fact, a child uh, cries a lot. Not all of them, but the one that they cry a lot, that the one that they get told directly and or indirectly that it's not nice when you cry, it's not good to cry. So even so, anytime that the child is feeling some kind of negative emotion, uh, instinctively, what does it do? It repress it. Okay, so it doesn't allow these emotions, which an emotion is energy in motion, and doesn't allow this energy to leave the system, to leave the body. Because if we could always um, express and let go of the energy that is generated when we encounter some kind of distressing experience, whatever that may be, that energy would leave us, would dissipate. And we would then, our whole emotional, psychological, and physiological, biological, physical system would get into a state of peace, so to speak. Okay. In fact, as I mean, emotions really they could be determined as physiological states when the normal quietened state, normal level of quietness is altered, right? And when trauma happens, is that this very altered state of quietness is disturbed. But the trauma, and that's why it's called the trauma, is when this surplus of energy is trapped. It's when it's still in the system. And that's why um, we may have had a distressing experience when we were 2, 3, 4 years old, and we are still holding on to that energy. We haven't released it. And this energy may then express itself, manifest with some particular symptoms. Okay, that's why normally we get to understand what was the original trauma, is because there are some symptomatic experiences, meaning there are some tendencies, some disturbing factors in our life, maybe now, maybe when we are like 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, that we wish weren't there. Like, for example, we may have an obsession about checking if we locked the house, and maybe an obsession about going back in the house to check if we turned the gas off. You see, like people that they are obsessed. Hello, Donna. Great seeing you here. People that they have any kind of obsessions, for example, that obsession, it could be symptomatic of maybe a trauma, a traumatic experience that they had maybe when they were children, right? So, but we get to know what the trauma was, because in the here and now, maybe years afterwards, some kind of symptoms may show up. Okay, and for some people, it's easier to understand what the traumatic, the origin, or maybe of the symptoms that are present uh, nowadays. And for some people, it's not so obvious. And for some people can easily transcend a traumatic experience. For some people can really truly get rid of all the symptoms because they got to the root cause of it. And for some other people, it's more challenging. Why? Well, to be honest, I don't know, because there's so many factors involved. But let's consider some of them, okay? Some scenarios, some different scenarios of why some people may be able to overcome a traumatic experience and why some people may not. I think that the ingredient, let's say, number one, has to be the readiness, the predisposition, maybe even the conscious desire to change, to overcome the symptoms that may appear, to overcome the challenge. Okay, why? Because if we are talking of a trauma that has conditioned our life for a very, very long time, what happened is that for some people, that has affected their whole lifestyle that they have, maybe unconsciously, but they may have gotten used to it. And this has different implications. Let's consider some of them. Uh, let's give an example. Maybe it's easier. Let's say that something happened to me when I was 5 years old. Okay, maybe I got really frightened while I was in a crowd. Okay, something happened. I was in a crowd. Maybe I was at a fireworks event, but I wasn't. I didn't expect it. I wasn't told what fireworks were, whatever. But there was this loud bang, and maybe near me I saw a dog. There were many people, and I saw a dog that really got scared, and maybe even barked at me or maybe even beat me. Okay, so I associated that frightening event with many people, having many people around me. So maybe since then, over time, maybe not straight afterwards, but maybe later on in life, I may and sometimes it happens for this from one day to the next, I become afraid of being in places where there's many people. Okay, I develop what is called agoraphobia. I have a fear. I get panicky when I am in between many people. Maybe I'm 25 years old. I'm in a shopping mall, and all of a sudden, I get frightened. I have to leave. I cannot be where there's many people anymore. Okay. So, and maybe I don't even know why the reason why I have all of a sudden this fear. Okay. But one of the consequences of this fear could be that I don't have to do things that before I was doing. Okay. Maybe that means that now every time that I have to go and do something or buy something in a place where there's many people, I can just delegate it to somebody else. Okay, I could just tell my friends, my partner, or whoever else, can you please go and do this and that for me because I've got these phobias and I can't do it. Or maybe other people may very nicely, uh, offer them to do what they know I couldn't do. Okay, so these are called secondary benefits, right? And the person maybe when realizes that um, to get rid of the trauma of the traumatic experience would mean to have to do things that he or she didn't do, hasn't been done for like a long time, and is comfortable maybe not doing those things. Maybe, I mean, this may, by the way, this could all be an unconscious process, okay? It's not that people are conscious of those things, but maybe unconsciously, then, and I think that's what when we call like resistances. So unconsciously, the person would sabotage the healing process, or even the fact that they may encounter somebody like maybe Donald or like me, some kind of professional that could help them out, could allow them to understand what was the original trauma and to get rid of it. Okay, but because they have an investment, so to speak, they have a good reason, a practical reason, to keep having the consequences, so the symptoms of the traumatic experience, that, and they're so used to it, so used of it, that subconsciously they don't want to change. You see, because uh, our subconscious mind, I regard actually the mind itself. I know some people may argue with me, but I regard the mind as being a like an instrument, okay? No more and no less. It's like an instrument. It's like a machine, so to speak, that in any given circumstances, in any given situation, it's amazingly good and sophisticated and very clever to adjust, to find a way for us, for the person, for the biological system to survive, okay, to adapt and survive. But the machine it's very good at resetting itself. It's very good at modulating and calibrating and rebalancing all has to be done to adapt to the environment, but doesn't like change at the same time. Meaning, if something is disrupting its functioning, it would adjust. But once the new balance has been established, let's say I have a traumatic experience, okay, and now because already the mind has created the machine has created a coping mechanism, meaning when I got scared and then when I got shocked and I couldn't allow myself to express and get rid of this emotion, the mind wants to protect me from facing the consequences of expressing this emotion, because my mind was programmed as in you do not express this kind of overwhelming energy because you don't like it and you may suffer from it. So she keeps it in, okay? And then the whole life is adjust on the basis of that. So the symptoms get creating, meaning, oh, because I don't want to relive that traumatic experience, I avoid meeting people. Okay, but the mind itself, the conscious, and the subconscious mind definitely doesn't give a monkey, because it's an instrument, it's a machine. Doesn't give a monkey if I'll never be happy again. Does it make sense? That's why, like always, only my interpretation. That's why to have the consciousness, the awareness of who we truly are, which is not our mind, it's not our thoughts, it's not even our emotions, it's who are we? We are a spiritual being having a human experience. We are that which can become aware of how we function, meaning of how we, in this context, for example, may become aware of what is happening, meaning, okay, why am I not able of being in a crowded place when other people can? What is different in me? And watch this, I'm not saying what is wrong with me. What is different in me? What has happened in me that now doesn't allow me to do that? Okay. But who wants to change things? It's the soul, it's the consciousness, it's the watcher, is who is becoming aware that something is just not quite right. Because people that's why, and this is where I connect with what I said previously. That's why to overcome a trauma that has created some kind of long-lasting symptoms, um, it's not as easy as we may think. There has to be a very, very a strong desire to change. Okay, otherwise, our subconscious mind would almost make us believe and be comfortable with whatever is the situation uh, we are living in. Okay. Oh, fantastic! I have somebody who's wrote a comment. It's in Italian, but I'll translate it. Michela, I hope you understand English. Um, but I think so, because otherwise you wouldn't write to me. But I'm not speaking Italian because this is an English live. But I'll translate what you are asking and I'll answer you in English. And I hope you understand. Michela, she's writing. Dio, no, 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 no. Oh, okay. You understand English. Okay. She's talking. You're talking about your adoptive child. Uh-huh. I see. He, okay. Are you telling me that your adoptive child, he is fearful of being abandoned and he is refusing all sorts of help? Oh, yes, I see what you mean. If what I'm telling, what I'm saying could relate to your adopted child, it could be. It could be. Yes, it could be that if he feels he's been abandoned, he could be refusing help. Yes, it could be. And now you remind me of something that I would have spoken about, but I'll tell you now. Okay, traumas, they can um, be originated in many different ways. Like I said before, something may have happened uh, at a certain time in our life, although um, we may almost being born with some kind of trauma, or we were, or something happened. Like for example, yes, if a child has been adopted or an adopted child, it depends also what the situation is, but normally who has been adopted has to face um, the feeling of rejection. Okay, because to be adopted would mean for the soul of the child, of the children, to face the fact that their biological parents, for whatever reason, uh, they didn't want him. Okay, that might have not been the case, but that could be one of the assumptions that the child has. Okay, and in these particular instances, what could help would be, for example, to work on a systemic level. For example, to do a family constellation of some kinds could help. And systemically, apparently, in fact, sometimes we experience some sort of traumas in our life, and they may not even have originated in this lifetime. Sometimes there are what are called hidden loyalties, like almost hidden agreements with maybe our parents that we may not even have met, but we agreed to take on his or her faith. And sometimes people even agree to take on the faith of their ancestors. That's why I personally use systemic family constellations as a therapeutic method, because in some cases, not always, everybody's traumatic experience can be different, but in some cases when it's something of a systemic origin, there are ways of working on this, what are called hidden entanglement with ancestors or with family members, and with basically with other people that at a very unconscious or maybe even at a soul level, this entanglement, these energetic links do not allow the person to be free, to be fully authentic, to be fully himself or herself. Okay, which this brings us again to consider the fact that it's each one of us experiences traumas in a different way, and it's not for everybody the same and as easy as it may be for somebody else to transcend traumas. Okay. mm, Michele, I don't know if I answer your question, but if what we are asking, yeah, it could well be actually that your, I don't know your son's uh, actual experience. Okay, But if it's very resistant to be helped, uh, there may be a reason. There may be a reason for it. Definitely, definitely, it could be. Um, what I would invite you to ask yourself, it's yeah, why? Maybe you have already asked yourself. Ask yourself maybe why. Where does this attitude come from? Because how do we transcend traumas? Here as well, there's not one for all, but sometimes uh, to understand the origin of trauma, the cause of the trauma, it could be enough to 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 start the healing process, to start a shift that then will continue taking place, because awareness in itself, it's extremely powerful. It's an analogy would be to enter a dark room where we can't see anything, and awareness is like a light, a torch light, a light that we can shine in the room, or we lit up the room. So once we can see what is in the room, when we can see what are the hidden, the unconscious obstacles that they were not allowing us to live peacefully, then half of the work, so to speak, is done. Because then, anyway, we can contextualize everything. Then we can do something with what we have seen. Then we can do something with what we know has happened. Does it make sense? In fact, a psychoanalytic view of traumas is exactly that. For a psychoanalyst, most of the time, that's what a psychoanalyst would say, that to get rid of a trauma, psychological trauma, it's fundamental to get to its root, its origin. And once you do that, something changes, okay? The healing takes place. And sometimes it really is like that. Um, Other people nowadays say actually that it's not necessary to understand and pinpoint what was the traumatic experience. And I believe, and I've seen working with people, that sometimes, yes, you may understand what the real root cause of the traumatic experience is. It then can be healing in itself. Other times, it may not become so obvious, although sometimes working with the with the emotional charge of the traumatic events, uh, it's enough to to transcend the trauma, so to speak. I'll give you an example, because nowadays there's so many ways anyway to get rid of of the distress caused by a trauma. For example, I had experiences of people with like post-traumatic stress disorders. When they had a traumatic experience, and they couldn't sleep. They have these images. Then you have like deja vu of what happened, and so on and so forth. But for example, with when you know that the traumatic experience generated that panic feeling that recreates itself, with methods like EMDR, for example, eye movement reprocessing, and no, eye movement, desensitization and reprocessing. With EMDR, you can really get rid of the emotional charge that is still associated to an event of a memory, literally in a matter of minutes. And it is one of the most powerful and effective ways of getting rid of trauma that I know. I still use it sometimes, for example, EFT, the tapping, that could be also be quite effective. And sometimes, even just or hypnosis. When somebody regresses, if he has some kind of resistances to go consciously to remember what was happened, I may use hypnosis or hypnoconstellation, again using hypnotic techniques, having the person to relax and then to subconsciously visualize again, see what happens, what appears, or see what was happening. Okay, when the trauma arises, can be useful. Or sometimes just talking. You know, Freud himself, he was using hypnosis at the beginning when he found out about hypnosis, Sigmund Freud, and then he actually preferred to use what is called the cathartic method, which is people were actually conscious and he would just prompt them, he would just having them talk, and using maybe mental association, he would have them to go back to the time to remember the time of the trauma. Well, not always, but if the person is ready, even just to remember the trauma could have a cathartic effect. And a catharsis is when the emotional charge that is still held in the system of the person get released. So maybe, and that's happened when the person maybe talks about something that happened when she or he was like 3 4 years old, and talking about it, the memory itself ignites the emotional charge again, and the person may cry, maybe may cry and cry a lot, or anyway, it's and because crying, it's the most cathartic and organic and healing way of releasing emotions. Okay, so sometimes even just remembering something that happened could be healing. Michaela is writing, yes, that's what he says. I don't want to face. To face with my pain. I see. Yes. Okay. Mm-mm. Yeah. Well, if he doesn't want to face his pain, I don't know what you do. I'm just telling you what I feel like saying, telling you. Uh, don't force him. Don't force him. Be patient. Be um, compassionate. In other words, uh, I, I would invite you to suggest to him that if he ever wants or feels like opening up, uh, you would be there. Okay, because if he felt understood and definitely not judged, and that he could, if he wanted, open up, and that would be for him, maybe if he opened up and faced his pain, that would be the catharsis that I was talking about. That could be a cathartic event where he could release, when he could get in touch, maybe with the pain that is still holding into him. You see, from a purely, and I don't know anything about him, so I literally just, I'm telling you what normally is the way trauma release releasing work, is that if he has had a painful experience and is still holding on to the emotional charge, uh, what could help him? Yes, it would be when, if he could open up and release this painful energy. But he's the one that has to be ready. Does it make sense? He has to be willing. But what you could do, Michaela, is to, okay, keep this in mind. And okay, what I'm telling you, Michaela, but to everybody, it's not just, it's definitely not mumbo jumbo, and it's not just a nice way of seeing things, okay? We are all one. In other words, I am talking to myself, you are listening and watching a part of yourself, Okay, we are very connected. I know we look separate. I look like I'm Luca, Michela, you look like Michela, and everything else looks outside from us. But I invite you to consider that what we consider to be inside and outside, it's a concept. We are all in energy. We are all energy. Okay, of course, this looks like physicality. It looks like me, but on an energetic level, I am connecting with you all. We are part of all. Okay. Hey, hello, Lucio. Great seeing you here. We are all connected. We are all one thing. Even so, every time, for example, I think of Lucio, I am connecting with Lucio. If whatever I feel about Lucio may be aware of it or not, but on a very fine energetic level, I am affecting him. Okay, why is this important to keep in mind? Because in yours, Michaela, but this is for all of us. If we think of somebody else, and when we think of him or her, we feel and think, oh, poor him, poor her, okay? We are not helping him or her because energetically we are connecting with them because we are one at that moment and we are bringing them down. Does it make sense? Because even if they could make it, they're like, okay, I can only. Our feeling for them, oh, poor you, I'm sorry for you. You are not as well as you could be. We are not empowering them. Okay. So what do we do? And I'll tell you, when I work with people, I have to do this. Otherwise, I couldn't work with people. When we imagine somebody, when we think of somebody, let's think of them being strong, being well, being free, being powerful. And that's who they truly are. Okay, this is what means transcending traumas, meaning transcending symptoms, transcending even physicality, transcending the illusions of what we see or what is materializing in front of us. But there's another reality that it's infinitely powerful. It's pure energy, pure consciousness, and we are all it. Our essence, what we call our soul, which is a localization of spirit, which is the sum of all individual souls, which is all of us and more, it's infinitely powerful. Okay? So if I truly wish for somebody to be healthy, I can very much help them by knowing in myself, connecting with who they truly are, which is perfect health. And I'm serious. So on an energetic level, Michaela, you can help him by knowing that he can overcome his fear. He can overcome his trauma. He can overcome his suffering. Does it make sense? That doesn't mean, by the way, but we don't do this in a manipulative ways. We don't do this forcing, thinking you have to get better, you have to get better. This is no mind over matter. No, this is about consciousness. This is knowing that each one of us, it's perfect. Their essence is perfect. Then, of course, it's up to them to realize it and to feel what we feel. But if we feel it first, we are already almost on an energetic level. And energy, we know now that it's not just energy, is made of light and information, meaning in energy there's information. And when I think of you and I transmit you, so to speak, it transfer you some sort of energy. The energy could have all different sorts of information. I'll give you an example. Uh, I could look at you and emotionally connect with you, like communicate with you in a peaceful way, serene way. or in an angry way, so the energy, the information would be of a certain kind, or in a sorrowful way, like, oh my gosh, oh poor you. Does it make sense? Can you see that? And the information, your message would be of a certain kind. Or I could think of you, you can make it. You see what I mean? That's why, for example, I give you an analogy. Jesus Christ, apparently, it was one of the most well-known healers that walked the planet, right? Well, he never for a second believed in the trauma or in the symptoms. He was the one that he would say to the somebody who couldn't walk, now get up and walk. And the person, what would do, would get up and walk, apparently. But that's a metaphor. I don't know if it really happens or not, but that's to say that means that Jesus Christ had the conscious that could transcend the traumatic experience, could see who the person truly was. And him knowing that would have the person to see that as well. In fact, when he would perform what we call miracles, meaning the person that would get up from the wheelchairs and so on and so forth, he would say to the person would say, oh, thank you very much, would say almost that you heal me. And he would say, no, I didn't heal you. Your faith healed you. You see? So, but if we believe in somebody else, we have more chances that they would believe in themselves. But if we don't believe in somebody else, they could still believe in themselves. They could still think, well, you don't believe in me, but I believe in myself. But it would be of help if we believe in them. So we would encourage them to believe in themselves. Does it make any sense? But this is to say that every healing is self-healing. You see, the healer doesn't heal anybody. We call him healer, but it's just a facilitator. It's somebody that knows the wellness and the perfection and the strength of the other, and so allows the other to see it for himself as well, and to heal and to self-heal. I hope I was clear enough. Michele is writing. My Reiki too, twin situation could be useful, right? Oh, definitely, yes. Oh, yeah, Reiki could be very useful. Yes. And my positive thinking of him, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Michela, I don't know if you saw it. I will put in the comments the link of the video that I did about on YouTube. If you look on my YouTube channel, you see there's a video I did on the law of attraction in action. But I'll put it in the comments later so you can watch it. But yes, exactly. Because if anytime we are vibrational beings, so and we are never on idle. I would like to be on idle, to be honest with you. Meaning I would like to just switch off and that's it. Not influence anything maybe for a while. But it's impossible, because we are always vibrating. We are connecting with everything. So the way I vibrate and you vibrate, it's resonating with something similar. So when we have negative thoughts about ourselves or others or life in general, because again, thoughts and emotions and the body are one, because you see, the body is the physical manifestation of our thoughts, of our mind, of our emotions. And emotions as well are our thoughts felt. In fact, try if you can, but you wouldn't be able to. When you're really angry, really stressed, try and formulate or say something nice like, I love you or I love life. It's so difficult. We could hardly think that thought. You see? Because the energy, the vibration, it's not resonating with with an happy thought. On the contrary, when you're really happy, when you're serene, when you're excited, you may never even think, oh, I hate you, or something despiteful. And even if you were thinking, or if you had to say it to somebody, it just wouldn't resonate. You wasn't able to do it. You see what I mean? So this is to say, but that in any given moment, we are not just influencing and affecting our own vibrational state, but we are also influencing and affecting other people's vibrational states and even our environment. I give you an example. I don't know if Lucio, you're still here, but for who doesn't know Lucio, Lucio is amazing with plants. He's got so many. He loves plants, and he's got so many beautiful plants and flowers at home. And uh, and I know him. I've known him for many years, and he has a really, really beautiful, gentle way of being. Okay, it's really caring, really gentle, really attentive, and the plants and the flowers around him, beasts around him, feels it. They feel it, and they get nourished by it. You see, it's not a coincidence, really. I remember thinking about it now. There was somebody that I knew who didn't like plants or flowers, and it wasn't a coincidence. Uh, if he was given plants or flowers as gift, they wouldn't last. They wouldn't last. They would die one way or another. Can you see? And that's not a coincidence. Okay, in my own life, I can't talk about plants or flowers because I have few plants in London, but you need to, but because I always travel so much and I live between England and London, I I haven't got many flowers or plants at home. But I can tell you that before 2002, in other words, before I asked myself, who am I really? So when I was just believing that I was my mind, my thoughts and my emotion, and I had a very, very negative attitude toward life. I was very judgmental. I was very, very angry. I was always generating, well, almost always generating very negative thoughts and emotions. And I was attracting to me very often car accidents. People would argue with me. I would lose my wallet. People would steal from me. And I know now that it was a reflection, and also sometimes I wasn't well. I was a reflection of my emotional state, my mentality, my inner vibration. Since then, I've been working on myself, and I'm still working on myself. I'll never stop. But now my thoughts and my emotions, they are very different. Okay. I am happy with life. I believe in perfection. I know that I am perfect, everybody's perfect, and life is perfect as it is. Okay. I don't think like I used to think before, oh, things should be different from how they are. And that thought was generating stressful, resistance emotions in me that they would attract and resonate challenging situations. Nowadays, that my mentality is much more fluid, my emotions are as well much more peaceful. Guess what? I don't have accidents. If I happened, and it happened to me in the past 3, 4 years, about 3, 4 times, that I lost my phones or I lose my wallet, and you know what? I get them back. People give me my phone back. Maybe I phone my once the last time I lost my phone, it was on the tube. I I phoned myself, and somebody had taken it into the station. I got it back. In Italy as well, it happened the same. Um, I was in Thailand a while ago. I lost quite a big note. Somebody ran after me and gave me the money. You see, it's not a coincidence. Years ago, that wouldn't have happened because my energy, the way I was vibrating, would have not allowed these things to happen. Okay. So, why am I saying that about traumas? Yes, that because if we know somebody that is going through a difficult, challenging experience because he just had a traumatic experience or is living the after effect of a past trauma, the way we feel when we think about him or her has an impact on them. Important to think again of the fact that doesn't mean that we are affecting them, but we can help them to go one way or the other, to overcome the challenge or to stay stuck where they are. Because we're all one. Because we think we are separate and we look separate. Yes, this illusion is so real, it's so powerful. But it's this illusion that very often generates competitiveness, suffering, isolation, depression. If we only were aware that we are always all connected, even if we don't see each other, and we are all very much loved and surrounded, and I'm serious, loved and literally surrounded by energies and entities that, yes, we can't see them with our eyes, but they're there. I, I tell you this because, again, before 2002, I used to feel lonely very, very much. Very, very much. Nowadays, of course, I like to see people. Of course, it's always beautiful to see people. Although I don't feel lonely. Even when I am alone physically, I never feel lonely. I I know and I feel actually um, surrounded by love, energy. To me, love and energy, they're synonymous. Okay, I feel that there is that I that I'm that I am at one with whatever else. Call it life, call it God, call it whatever you want. You see, I hope that uh, whatever I told you, Michaela, could be of any any help to you, and to any of you that has been listening to me. And I thank you very, very, very much for watching. Thank you all. Ciao, Lucio, if you're still there. Ciao, everyone. And I'm going to see you in 2 weeks' time, same, same place. Ciao. Have a good evening.